I was born in Pretoria, the capital of South Africa, but I grew up in the north of South Africa, not too far from the Zimbabwean border. And so as a child, there were a few things that happened to which I don't think children should be exposed, but that was just the realities in South Africa. One was there was a very, I don't want to go into too much detail of that, but there was a very well-known rape incident in our town growing up. It was a kidnapping and a rape with people we knew. And I was very young and I didn't really understand this. And that was around, I think it was in 1994, just when the ANC took over in South Africa. And another is we lived across the street from a family who are family of a very well-known case. There was a well-known case in, I believe, 1985 in South Africa where two families were murdered by the ANC by a landmine bomb. So they would put landmines on farm roads and kill innocent people like that. And it was a farmer and his wife and his children who died in that landmine attack because they were farmers. And the ANC had a policy of targeting farmers. And we grew up across the street from the brother of this person. And so we spoke about that.
Why do the ANC target farmers? I think we need to get that kind of settled. Is it got to do with land?
It's partly has to do with land. Historically, there's also one dimension to the argument is farmers tend to live, tend to be the first people you see when you cross the border. And so it was about crossing the border into South Africa, and then the farmers, in their eyes, the farmers cooperated with the police in the apartheid system. But it's also about land, and it's also about the fact that the Afrikaner people are associated with farming life. And so it's very symbolic. To be a white farmer is sort of the symbol of being an Afrikaner. And so the Afrikaners are called the Boers, and Boer means farmer. And so I think it's that. But that's the other part growing up was learning about what happened in Zimbabwe with the land grabs, and seeing it in the news and knowing it's not very far from where we live, and how they just destroyed the economy in you could say in a matter of days. And then the other thing was the farm murders. So I grew up in a community where there were many, many farm attacks and farm murders. And people I knew growing up were murdered, some of them very brutally, throats slit and things like that. And there was one case of a person I didn't know, but it was a family member of someone who was close to us. This story I was talking about was it became a well-known farm murder, and it was very brutal. It was an elderly couple who... they were tied up and dragged up and down throughout the house, and eventually the husband, who's an elderly man and a farmer, he was eventually they open up the shower nozzle on just hot water, and they shoved the shower nozzle down his throat up into his stomach. After that, we're not sure at what point he died, but after that, they shot him with a shotgun, close range.
And this is the ANC?
It was, well, those were criminals.
Those were criminals, yeah.
But
it would have been explained away as obviously they are just justified to be angry.
Yes, and the point here, and that's the controversial part, but it's the fact that it's controversial doesn't mean it's not true, is that there were virtually no farm attacks before 1990. The one I mentioned with the landmine is one of very, very few isolated incidents where innocent people were killed on farms. There were virtually zero. But we do know the ANC, who's governing South Africa at the moment, lived in exile. They were outside of South Africa. We do know that they had a policy of targeting farmers. They explicitly said so. It was in their policy documents. In 1985, in Kabwe, they took a formal policy position. They had a conference and they decided in what they called military operations, there's not going to be a distinction between hard and soft targets. So it's just a way of saying they can kill innocent people. And targets, they explicitly explained that farmers are targets and should be regarded as targets. And so what happened then in 1990, when they started dismantling the apartheid system, these ANC people who were up in Africa mostly came back to South Africa, and that's when the farm murder started. Now you can say it's just incidental, but if that's just incidental, you need to find a different explanation as to why did the farm murders start at the exact time when these people came back from exile, when they had an explicit policy of murdering farmers.
Yeah.
And it really started in 1990. You can look and you can see that's when the statistics start for the farm murders.